Hey, there we go. We got video again. Okay. Not sure why YouTube was bugging out on that one. Okay, back to what we're doing. Into the Depths is our game jam theme. I want to avoid anything that's just in your face with the theme, which is going to rule out quite a few options. Anything tied to, because again, we're doing a 1-bit 2D. So anything that's just a vertical version of a platformer, simulating falling, anything along those lines, I think we need to immediately rule out, which means this should get ruled out. Anything to deal with the sea, because depths, that's going to be the go-to for it. Let's rule out the fishing. Let's highlight some of these cards that we like. To start with, let's gray out the paths we don't want to take. All right. Things that are that we are finding interesting. Let's highlight some of those. We got to keep it scoped within our concept of a 1-bit as well. So we need to think about that while we're going through it. I'm not very interested in intense or extreme. In deep, committed to a situation. I kind of like that as a topic. I think we might be able to do something with black holes. We've got stuff like deep space. We could do, this would be playing on, we'll figure that out in a second. Some sort of 2D space sim, spaceship sim. We would want black holes manipulating gravity / pole. I'm not sure what we would do past that, but that ties in a few different topics. Our black holes get tied in. I don't know if we want to tie that into the emptiness of space, but it would definitely tie. We could tie in aspects of remote for sure. We could very easily tie in intense or extreme if we introduce things like extreme environments. If we want to do planet bodies, providing different styles of environments. Doing this in 1-bit from a coloration standpoint, might become a little difficult on how we do visual design for our planets. So we will have to keep that one in mind. The Abyss also kind of plays into that one, because again, space in it is infinite. I feel like space and sea are going to be pretty common when it comes to topics that people are going to fall into on this one. Let me see if anybody's talking. Um, no one's really popping in on a lot of things, unfortunately. I understand not wanting to publicize your theme for people doing the opposite of what I'm thinking. I want to avoid overlapping themes. I don't want to build something that's just the same concept everyone else is using. So the more in depth we tie it and the more creative we get with our concept, the better. I'm not super sold on this, but I'm also not willing to throw it out. Aloofness makes me think of like social sims. Low chance of occurrence makes me think of RNG drop rates. Remote is in 2 points in time. I don't particularly want to deal with this. I don't like dealing with time travel related stuff. We could do this without it really being something associated with time travel, but the concepts that come to mind for me don't feel like it really plays into this theme at all. Low chance of occurrence. The first thing that comes to my mind, of course, is RNG, like randomness and drop rates and those kinds of things. I'm just checking the outdoor cameras real quick. I am expecting my mother relatively soon. So I want to make sure that... Okay. How full or empty something is. The only concept I can think of for this one is something along the lines of filling, emptying containers, which would lead to... I mean, there's quite a few things we could branch off of this, but the one that comes to mind that is of some interest to me would be an inventory sim. I've wanted to build one. and flush out inventory systems from an RPG standpoint for quite some time. And it's something that would be relatively easy to do in 1-bit because it's mostly interfaces and icons. So that's an option. We can do another game that I've been tossing around the concept on is a cat desktop pet. So this would be like an old Tamagotchi style. When we play into aloofness, cats are one of the most aloof animals that come to mind for me. So leaning into social game, social sim, trying to earn the respect, adoration, I guess is the word for it, of a little cat pet. I've been thinking about something along these lines, not this in particular, but along the lines of these little like pet style, because it's something that would be easy to integrate into the game system that we've built. Twitch chat could, well, when we get Twitch chat running, Discord chat, could send like feed pets kind of thing. I don't know how we would do this. So if I look at these in isolation, aloofness, which makes me think of social games and social sims. If we look at aloofness and the concept of social games and social sims as separate concepts, we can start getting into like NPC socialization. So think Sims. However, I don't know how we could tie that back into aloofness, which is the actual link to our concept. Because it's not that Into the Depths can be linked to social games. It's that linked to aloofness. And the word aloofness makes me think of social games. So this is a thematic thing. And so we still need to tie it back into like the aloofness is the aspect of socialization. So maybe putting this here is a bad idea. And we should just link aloofness can be the topic of cats. And so in the context of a game, a desktop pet. Technically, the concept here is aloofness in the concept of creatures. So maybe we add the card of cats. Cats are aloof. Therefore, we have a linking. We also have, I mean, we can make any social interaction. We can have that aloof. But cats as an animal tend to be portrayed as aloof. Low chance of occurrence. I don't think we want to go this route. It's not a style of concept or game that I would enjoy building, so we don't really want to get involved too much with that. So let's take these, move them over to our abandoned pile. Which means I don't think we want to deal with remote, to be honest, as a concept, as a direct concept. So let's drop that linking. This is something I've been thinking of for creating for you guys on Twitch, which puts more pressure on me finishing that Twitch integration. Which the more I think about that, the less I want to do it. Dealing with AWS is just not something I want to deal with right now. So it would be nice to have something that decouples from that to give me a break. To just work on other things. I need to go back to it at some point in time, but I need some time away from it so I can just stew and cook on it. I don't want to remove it just yet, but let's move it off over there. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I want to be able to create a inventory management game. Because I want my long-term goal on games involves RPGs, because I love RPG games. And one of the aspects of strong RPGs is item, which means inventory management. But I don't want it to be just bland, like a thing you deal with. You know what I mean? Like when we talk. Hang on, I have a text message. Okay, we got about 40 minutes. When we talk RPG inventories, we have things like RPGs. When it comes to inventories and RPGs, we often end up in situations where you're fighting the inventory. You know what I mean? Like it becomes inventory management is a burden within the game. And I don't want that. I want it to be an enjoyable aspect of the game, if not the main focus of the game. But we also have to keep in mind, we don't want to tie the core concept of the inventory too deep into it, because if we're building an action-oriented RPG, like an MMORPG, or like think WoW, for example, imagine how tedious it would be if every time you picked up an item there was a little mini game. So whatever we build, we don't want it to take away from the main aspect of the game. We don't want it to be too involved, but at the same time, I don't really want it to be an afterthought. So I would like to create some sort of nice fluid inventory system. And this also gets me some more time dealing with interfaces, which is something haven't done in Godot. Tying this directly into the core concept in an identifiable way is going to be difficult, I feel like. Just because we have it's because we're coming into this from distance to bottom, so the depth, so how full or empty is something. So when we talk, I don't know, draining or filling a container, for example, like, I don't know, a pool, it's pretty obvious. We have distance to the bottom, so the depth of the water. When we have it from the stance of an inventory, it makes me think games like There's one in particular that comes to mind. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, though. It is an indie game. I think this is it. No. I thought that was it. Backpack Hero. Yeah. Games like this where you actually have a backpack you're managing. But even this, it's still like, yes, it's got the animation or the visuals of a backpack, but it's still like this top down, your backpack fills space. It doesn't imply depth. So being able to add stacking of items, like a vertical sense to it somehow, would give more of a sense of depth to it. Which I think would be kind of important with the direction we're trying to go. I don't know if that's something that I can. It's one thing to make it as a inventory system, but if I'm building a game around inventory management, I want that to be where I spend the majority of the time. So in a 1-week game jam, a day for infrastructure, a day for like polish and deployments, and then that leaves us, because they extended it a little bit. I think we have an extra day now. But assuming 7 days, if we're taking 2 days for setup and polish on structural stuff, of the 5 days, it would be in a perfect world, 3 days would be focused on our core mechanic, which is inventory, and then 2 days on the supplementary mechanics. That would be a nice spread. But if we're just building an inventory and then everything else just exists around it, I don't know why we would be spending that much time on just a basic inventory. Because if you look at Backpack Hero, it's dragging of items between slots. So the entire mechanic is built around inventory. Down at the bottom, it's a idle RPG. So all gameplay aspects from a player standpoint is that top section where you're interfacing with your backpack. But I feel like it would require more time and investment on our side to implement an idle RPG than it would backpack management in that sense. So now we've got well, what do we put into the backpack? Like, we can't have an inventory management game without items to fill the inventory. There's no point in that, which means we run into this weird situation where I need to build something to give inventory, but I like items to put into the inventory, but I want the inventory itself to be the interesting aspect of it. Which is, I don't know of a way that we could build this that would be entertaining, I guess is the way, within the scope and bounds of this game jam. So I think we just have to scrap this idea. That being said, we don't have to scrap this. And the reason I say that is there are other things that we can fill. Other styles of containers. Though doing this in the concept of 1-bit, filling a container with water, for example, I don't know how we can do water in a 1-bit. where people are going to understand it's water. Yeah, I think we might just scrap this altogether. All right. We've got the concept of aloofness. We got distance. I'm thinking games like Into the Breach style. When we talk that, we can go ahead and drop this down here. Is there anything we can think of when it comes to distance or aloof? I really still like social sandbox. When I think aloof, I think isolation, which also plays into that whole remote. So let's bring that back. So if we do the conjunction between, I'm going to just get rid of these two. If we do our join point between these two, we get social isolation. This is dangerously leaning into something story driven. I don't really want to go story driven. I can write. I am actually quite good at creative writing when it comes to building and fleshing out like worlds and lore. Dialogue, not so good. Social commentary, real bad. So if we go the path of social isolation, we would have to do it from a mechanical system standpoint, which means that it would be like the Sims style where they don't actually say words. They show chat bubbles, meaning implying things. I don't know, like the depths of despair style. I don't know how we could do that and imply that and get it across without text. Because we also have to keep in mind this is a game jam that is based out of Russia. So we have English and Russian speakers that are going to be playing these games. So avoiding text and dialogue would actually benefit us quite a bit. When possible, we should use universal visual cues as well. Like our play button should have a play icon, like a video player play button. So we should rely pretty heavily on iconography, I feel like. How do we imply and build off of social isolation? Without any verbalization. This is not within my wheelhouse of things I would normally do. See if I can get an idea of games that fit into this. I know one popular one that kind of fits into this category is it's I would argue it's kind of the inverse of this in that it is the Game with the Scarf. Journey. In that it builds on the social aspects and engagement, not from an isolation standpoint. So atmospheric and exploration based. And then we've got horror and psychological. And then we've got narrative and existential. These are like categorizations of games. Puzzle and unnerving. None of these are really mechanics based. Atmospheric and exploration are going to be focused on visuals and creation of levels. When we look at horror and psychological, it's going to be very heavily on level design and visuals. Narrative and existential is going to be, again, focused on narrative, which is something we're trying to avoid. Puzzling and unnerving is going to be a combination of platform, or like puzzling mechanics and visuals. Fitting into this category really boxes us into a heavy focus on narrative and or visual design, which are areas that we are not strong in. So I might need to scrap that idea. The things that interest me would be stuff we wouldn't be able to do within a week. We're talking like Sims development of AI for characters that are like how we handle character interactions for NPCs and flushing that out to provide social aspects to them. While interesting from a mechanical standpoint on things for me to do, it is not something I'll be able to bring to a level that I would be happy with within a week. And that would be focused on purely on the AI. I don't know how I would even start to tie that into player engagement. So being as I can't come up with a way to incorporate the mechanic into gameplay. I think we're just gonna have to scrap that. Which means we're sitting at, and the branching on this is starting to get weird. If I'm going to build this, this isn't a mechanical style of how I would want to build it. Which means I think this entire segment we just scrap. Let's go ahead and delete some of these linkings. All right. So bringing it back to the areas that we haven't scrapped. We have deep from the sense of black holes, bottomless pits, intensity, intense or extreme. So we have our 2D spaceship simulator. I don't know what we would do to make this engaging, but this has potential. And mechanically speaking, it avoids everything we want to avoid. So I don't see any problems with this. We can look at it from the sense of inescapability. Again, we're trying to avoid we could go from the route of trying to get away from a black hole, for example. So do a 2D top-down design where hitting the center of the screen we could do a horizontal runner instead of it being I changed my concept partway through because rotating around a black hole doesn't make sense based on shear size. We could go the route that you are a growing black hole that needs to feed. That would be an option. We have this route leads us to specifically when the black hole route that we got to this leads us to a side scroller. Black hole is pulling in matter. You dodge. It's just theming. This doesn't feel very creative. This one's a little more creative, but it doesn't feel like it's into the depths. This one feels like a bit of a stretch. This one feels like it's the opposite. You're trying to avoid going into the depths. So I don't really like these. Let's graph those as well then. I'm just gonna leave them up here for now. This one's kind of similar, except you would be going deeper into space, so we would have to set some sort of objective to draw you deeper in. I like the idea of into the depths, meaning like, you know, you're getting in too deep, kind of. I really like that as a concept if we go that route. I have, if we want to scope it within the concept of 2D, so far this is my favorite, conceptually. What that means, I think is still up in the air. So we'll come back to that one. So anything over here, division is something that we could do, but focusing on the like 1 into 5 or 2 into 4. Hang on just a moment. I just got knocked on the door. And back. Sorry about that. We'll jump back into this later. I've got family here visiting, so give me a little bit of time. I need to cook on this a little bit. I am still leaning pretty heavily towards this if we decide to go through with this game jam. I'll probably pick up streaming again maybe later today for a little bit. I'm not sure. We'll see on timing. That is my intention though, is to figure out this game jam and direction today. It may be that we can stream again later today. It might be something like we hop on stream tomorrow and I just kind of tell you guys what's going on. But all right, thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll be back later today. If not today, then tomorrow morning.